Hello, my name is Gail Seiler, and I'm honored to be representing Betrayal Project USA. We are a victim led organization dedicated to exposing institutional betrayal, honoring those who are lost, and pursuing justice for crimes against humanity committed under the guise of public health and under the guise of COVID-19. You can learn more about our work, view real victim stories, and get involved by visiting our website at betrayalprojectusa.org. You can also follow us on Rumble, BitChute, and X, which is formerly Twitter, and our X account is in my profile there. All of our social media, including our Substack, can be found on our website. And today I have the privilege of speaking with Janie Andrews, whose husband was killed in an Alabama hospital,
Yes.
due to the deadly protocols. So she's going to tell her story. She also has a story about her daughter, but she's going to tell her husband's story today. So, Janie, first of all, thank you. And second of all, tell us about who Larry was and your life before all this happened.
Oh, goodness. Larry was larger than life. I mean, he was the life of every get together. He was a jokester, but in a serious sort of way, which was comical. He loved the outdoors. He was a veteran of the Vietnam War. He served 2 tours in Vietnam. But just the kindest, heartedest man you ever wanted to meet in your life. One of my friends at church, they called him Dr. Love, because he just showed love to everybody. If he had never met you, he was going to treat you the same as he treated people he had loved for their life. You know, he didn't see any difference. Loved his God, his family, loved being outdoors. We traveled a lot. We rode motorcycles together. We hiked. He was kind of like a mountain goat. He would run ahead of you and climb up on rocks and be taking pictures of you when you met up with him. And he was just fun. He was fun loving. He liked to make light of things. You know, he didn't take life too seriously. But he loved. And that's the thing that I told our children after he passed. I said, just remember the love. Always remember the love.
How many children do you have?
We had 8 children together. I had 5 small children when we met. He had 3 that picked up where mine left off in the teenage years. So we had quite the ordeal, a lot to fight through those first 10, 11 years. But man, once it all leveled out, he was my knight in shining armor that came in and was just a guiding light. He was Jesus in skin, is what I always told him. He was just Jesus in skin for me. And he taught me about the love of Jesus through the way he treated me. Losing him was a huge, devastating blow to my life.
Yeah.
There's such an emptiness now.
So let's talk about, the point in the pandemic that he got sick. It was early 2021, right? Or
March of 2020.
Yeah, March 2020. Mm-hmm. Okay, so take me through that. Was everybody sick? How did he end? Well, did he go to the hospital for COVID?
Or did he go for something else? Actually, he had been diagnosed 4 years earlier with COPD. He had an episode where his blood oxygen dropped in, which is what led us to the hospital and led us to find that out. This particular time, we weren't what I would call sick. We weren't running fever. We had no cough. Just felt tired, lethargic. But on this particular day, which I had taken him to urgent care 3 days before going into the hospital, because of the tiredness and just wore out. And they tested him. He was negative, but they went ahead and gave some antibiotics and stuff. That up in the corner of that paper is what they sent him home with. He was negative. We went home. He starts taking that. But 3 days later on Saturday, I noticed that he was kind of off. He wasn't moving very well. His mind, he didn't seem to catch up on a conversation as quickly as usual. Mm-hmm. And I asked him if he had taken his blood oxygen, because we had the little oximeter at home. And he said, no, I've lost it. I don't know where it's at. And I said, well, why don't you hop in the car with me and we'll go get one and we'll test it. And then if you feel up to it, we'll go get lunch. He said, okay. So he got in the car. I mean, he's moving around on his own. He is slower, but he's moving around. Got in the car, got the blood oxygen meter, went out and took it, and it was 57. And I rushed him back to urgent care. Mm-hmm. And they said, there's nothing we can do for that here. You need to take him to immediate care, which was a kind of a in between urgent care and the hospital. So I took him down there, and he walked in on his own. He filled out all the paperwork himself, went to the back. They did his blood oxygen, and it was still really low. They said, we're going to call an ambulance. He needs to go to the hospital with it being that low. So I said, I'm going to meet you there. He was terrified. I could see it in his eyes. He was terrified. And I'm trying to console him. I'm like, baby, it's okay. You're going to be okay. I'm going to meet you at the hospital. Mm-hmm. So they took him. I got down there about the same time they did. And I went up to meet the ambulance and to go in with him. And they stopped me before I got to the door and said, you can't enter. I said, I've been with him all along. And they said, it doesn't matter. We can only allow the patient in. Go have a seat in your car. Once he's been evaluated, we will call you. And so I guess it was an hour and a half, 2 hours later, they called out and they said, he's positive. We're admitting him. I said, but he just tested negative. And there was a chest x-ray done, and his chest x-ray was clear. Well, he's positive now. We're going to admit him. So that was all that was said, except they said, when he gets to a room, we'll have him call you. So I left and came home. I had called all the kids and let them know what was going on. I tried to call back because I didn't get a call from him, and it went through all day Saturday, all day Sunday. I still had not heard from him. Still could not even find out where he was at. Come to find out, he was in the emergency room all weekend. He didn't get moved to a room until like probably after midnight, Sunday night, sometime early Monday morning. He was in good spirits when I did talk to him. Actually, a doctor had called, and he said, your husband is doesn't want to be intubated. Do you know that? And I said, yes, I do. I kind of thought it was strange that early on to be asking me that. But he said, do you agree? And I said, yes, I agree. That's his wishes. So once I got the records, it does say that he talked to me and that patient was a DNI. However, the very next day, that same doctor went in to see him and changed it to a DNR without us knowing anything about it.
So was this when he first went in?
Yes.
He was on that. So he had the nasal cannula.
Yes.
Do you happen to remember how much oxygen they started him off on?
I do not right off the top of my head, because I've looked at so many different levels. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't that much in the beginning. Everything just kind of accelerated over time. Mm-hmm. Now, there was one point, because I was supposed to be allowed up to be with him after the 10th day. That was his isolation period. And at the end of 10 days, they would have allowed me up. But once that 10th day had come, which his oxygen had been low, up till that 10th day.
Mm-hmm.
And then they raised it. There was no apparent reason for that, but they raised it and said that I couldn't be with him.
That must have been when he went first to the rebreather, because they would have raised. See, he has the cannula and the rebreather on, actually. Now that I'm looking at this picture. Interesting. So he's on quite a bit of oxygen there then.
Yeah.
Which is interesting for somebody with COPD, because he had COPD. They don't usually, was the hospital experience, I mean, were they even treating his COPD, or they just treated it like COVID?
They just treated it strictly like COVID. He was on the protocol stuff. As a matter of fact, his regular pulmonologist, the one who took care of him for the last 4 years, after finding out he had COPD, called and told me that the hospital wouldn't allow him to come in and treat my husband because he wasn't a hospital doctor.
Oh my goodness.
But after getting the records, he was there. He was seeing my husband. And not only him, but his associates were seeing my husband. So I don't know exactly why I was lied to about that. But, and he told me, he said, one good thing, he said, they've cleaned the COVID floors. He said, there's no COVID patients up here, except for Larry. And they actually moved him room to room like 3 times in the beginning of him getting on a floor, because one room the lights didn't work, one room the remotes didn't work. He would push buttons to alarm the nurse and nobody would hear him. He tried hollering out, nobody would hear him, which you see in his journal.
Yeah, I'm gonna pull up some of his journal. So this was on the 6th, right? So he's like,
that was in the emergency room.
Okay, so this is when he went in the emergency room.
Mm-hmm.
So they're treating him. He said they're treating him for COVID-19 with injections every day, all day. What's that about?
I don't know exactly. I know they were giving him a lot of medicine, because at one point in here, he says it's hard to keep up with everything. He said there's so much medicine, and it's either in the records or in his journal. There's so much medicine, there's no way this can be good.
Interesting.
A lot of the medicines, even though he had breathing issues with the COPD, a lot of the medications they were giving him due to protocol caused suppressed breathing. Why would suppress a patient's breathing when they already have a breathing issue? That made no sense to me, or him.
And it's interesting here too, because he says, this is something I've found to be one of the most horrendous things that have been done. So they isolated him, right?
Yeah.
And
there was never a reason for that.
Never a reason for that. First of all, you brought him there. Like, you were literally just in a car with him, and you lived with him, and you slept with him, and you know.
Yeah.
So, but he talks here about, I have so many loved ones lifting me up, and the good Lord keeping me strong in spirit, and prayers being sent up to him. I love you all. So to take somebody who derives such hope and strength from his family and isolate him, I think is probably one of the, I don't know, crimes of the century, right?
Well, and one of the things too is Larry was hard of hearing. He had gone through the VA. He was supposed to get his hearing aids on Monday, the 8th, which is when they got him in a room in the hospital. He couldn't hear well. And then you add in all this oxygen and all this noise, And I don't even know that he understood what was going on. Even when we would try to talk to him, there was a whole lot that I'm sure he wasn't getting because he couldn't hear over all the noise because we would have to talk so loud, and then you got all of that. But so I know that had to be frustrating for him. And they don't even record that he's hard of hearing until the latter part of the hospital stay before they kill him.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, so he never got his hearing aids. He was trying to communicate as well as he could, and we were trying to communicate as well as we could. But I don't even know how much he heard.
That's so how, like, yeah, he couldn't even make decisions if he can't hear.
Yeah, not that they were really allowing him to make decisions.
They were just making it up as they go.
On the prognosis in the emergency room, I think I sent that to you. On the prognosis, it says grave. That's what they said about him. Before they ever did any testing or anything, this is what they put in his file. His prognosis is grave.
His grave.
But
wow.
You look at that picture that he took and sent me on one of the first days with just the cannula.
Oh, I pulled that one out already.
Okay, that's fine.
But even in this one, he's winking at you.
Yeah, he's winking at you. I mean, he sent one video where he's looking, he's got all that on, but he's waving in the camera and he says, "I love y'all. I love y'all."
Yeah, and I noticed so he was keeping this journal. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to pull some samples up throughout, but you also see like his writing is good. Mm-hmm. His context is good. And then as you go, it kind of gets worse, but they're also giving him drugs that are making that happen.
Exactly.
So on this one, he talks about 4 days after being admitted. So we're on March 9th. He talks about being treated for COVID. And he says they're treating me with convalescent plasma it has remdesivir in it. That was interesting to me. Convalescent plasma and remdesivir are different. I don't know. Was it actually convalescent plasma or just remdesivir? It was probably just remdesivir, right?
Yeah, I know he told me they were giving him convalescent plasma. Now, again, he wasn't hearing very well. So
yes, exactly.
What he's telling him and what he's relating is the best he can hear. So,
and
I don't know.
They weren't telling you. So he's isolated. He says right here, doctors are saying I have 6 more quarantine days. Then there's much work on my breathing. So he's getting remdesivir. Did you or Larry know at that time about remdesivir or how toxic it was, and they certainly didn't tell you?
No, it was so early on. There had been so much suppressed that we really had not heard much of anything about it. We didn't know what we were facing.
Right. Sure. Right.
Situation.
And I don't know if this applied to the case with Larry or not, because the shot had just come out. But did they ask him if he had gotten it?
Nothing was ever mentioned about it, and there's nothing noted in the record about it.
It was pretty early on.
Yeah.
I think that's when like the medical staff was, getting it, and there wasn't the big mandates and all that crud. Right then. So he says he's got 6 more days of quarantine. Mm-hmm. the amount this I feel this one. The amount of oxygen blowing into my lungs is way too much to let me get out of here. So much to work on before I'm home, but it's workable. So what do you know how much oxygen he was on? Were you seeing his journal pages? Were
Mm-hmm.
you seeing these as he was writing them? Was
No,
he like,
I didn't even know he had the, this until after he was gone.
so you got it after that? So you wouldn't have known.
Mm-mm. And it was up underneath stuff, so I don't know that they knew that he was writing all of that.
Yeah.
Sure, once we get into things later and realize things they disposed of, I'm sure if they had known about this, I might not have it.
Yeah, because the amount of oxygen, that's what they do that, and it's torture, and it hurts. And then on the 11th, COVID-19 anniversary in America, that's funny.
Yeah.
He wrote that. So let's see. So they started moving him. This is one of his moves that you were talking about.
Yeah.
They're cleaning up some of the COVID rooms.
Mm-hmm.
About 40 minutes. So, all right. This is also where you're talking about. He writes. See, and his writing is getting a little bit more difficult. So he had an alarm going off. The door was closed. He kept calling. Nobody came. Oh my goodness. Okay.
And I had the same episodes with trying to call. I called the nurse's desk, and either nobody would answer, or if somebody did answer, they'd say his nurse is not available right now.
Yeah.
I didn't talk. The only time I talked to a doctor was when they called the first part, when Erdman called me about the DNI.
Yeah.
Talked to him that day. And then I talked to Dr. Lutz, was his pulmonologist, when he called and told me that they would not allow him to see my husband because he wasn't a hospital doctor. That was the second time I talked to a doctor. And in the whole 20 days, that was it. That was all I heard from a doctor. Nobody discussed his condition. Nobody discussed his care. The few times I did talk to a nurse, they would say, everything's fine. He's doing well. One time I couldn't get in touch with him, and I said, where's his phone? Well, he lost his phone. How do you lose your phone? He's just laying in bed. But, and you don't get answers, and you're kept in the dark, and everything going through your mind is.
And then on the 12th, he says, okay, lowered the oxygen to the flow to 75%. But it looks like he said they dropped the OT liter flow to 25 liters. And Dr. Lutz says I'm doing good.
Mm-hmm.
25 liters is a lot for a COPD patient. I'll tell you that much, because they can't blow off the CO2.
Yeah.
And you were talking about the doctors and everything that they were saying, but I saw this in the records that you sent me. So it's the patient is okay. So your notes. Okay, so this one. Do you see where? So it says physical examination. No, at the bottom there, no face-to-face exam due to COVID isolation.
Yeah.
So if you can't examine somebody with the five senses, right? Visual, touching,
right.
Like no physical, that means they didn't, listen to his lungs. They didn't do anything. What did they just stare at him from a window or?
Right.
So that's a little bit concerning. What day is this one? This one is,
I can't see that well.
Let me see. This is the one where it says update received from nurse manager Val. It's the one where they're saying you have a hard time with patients' end of life issues.
Oh gosh, that was at the end. That was that would have been probably the 24th or 25th. That was way at the end because they killed him on the 26th.
All right, let me pull some more of these in that I pulled that I thought were just crazy.
I'll try to pull some of these up here so I can see them too.
All right, let me go ahead and
we're getting before we get to that, as it leads up to the day 10 when he should have came off of isolation and I should have been allowed up with him.
Yeah.
They increased his oxygen. He had been doing well. There were things in the notes, in the records, everything improving, no problems breathing. Everything's checking out fine. But all of a sudden, they increase the oxygen.
The oxygen.
And we don't know why. We can't figure out why.
So during the time, because he was in there for 20 whole days, right? Or 20,
yes, exactly 20 days.
Exactly 20 days. Okay, so during that time, he got remdesivir. What are some of the other medications that?
Baricitinib. Let me pull up the medicine list here and I can tell you.
So we got
remdesivir, the vancomycin. He did get zinc, sulfate, and melatonin. He got insulin. He got famotidine, enoxaparin or Lovenox, dexamethasone, cholecalciferol, vitamin D, maxapine, albuterol,
which should have been budesonide, but he got albuterol.
Yeah.
And he got sedatives, right? Like anxiety meds and.
In the very beginning, I don't think, like in those first 10 days, I don't think so. I think all of that started after they increased the oxygen, said he couldn't come off the floor because it's almost like, well, he didn't go downhill in the first 10 days like we thought he should. We're going to keep him. And they killed him on that 20th day.
Oh my gosh.
So it's like there was a plan in place, and if it didn't go as planned, we had to change things, because I feel like they knew if I was there.
Oh yeah,
I would have been fighting against a whole lot of what they were doing.
And we'll show that when we do the interview for your daughters, that when somebody is in the room advocating, it changes the whole landscape. Yeah. And so you're at home now. Were you sick at home or were you fine? No, you were fine.
I didn't get sick.
So you're at home and calling them, but they're not, really answering or giving you a lot of information. So they kind of plunged you into this state of chaos. So were you in communication with Larry until a certain point?
Like I said, we were talking on the phone. We were texting. He would text me several times a day. We would try to communicate. Again, I don't know how much he really understood. Sometimes I would say something and he would say something and it wasn't the same conversation.
Yeah.
It was almost like we were just knowing each other was there.
Yeah, exactly. Because without his hearing aids and the air, because I was in that bed, right? The air is loud.
And he writes in his journal that it's hard to text because of all the stuff on his face.
Yep, and you can't put your glasses on.
Glasses aren't sitting right.
Yeah.
So there's just so much that prohibits you from being able to talk to the people you love, to be encouraged by the people you love.
Right. And if you're not looking at somebody, if and it's already hard to hear, but you can't see
Yes,
their body movements, and
exactly.
you can't put the pieces together. I
Yeah,
know exactly. He probably didn't understand half of what was going, just because you can't hear. You can't. I mean, I don't wear hearing aids, and I know I had a hard time hearing, so I can't even imagine
yeah,
him not being. Plus that's a disability, and they should have let you in just based
yes,
on the fact that he couldn't hear.
yeah.
Um, so wrong, wrong, wrong. So take me through.
The last 10 days.
Well, so eventually, so they up the oxygen,
Hmm.
and then
Said they had to keep him another 10
so
days.
you couldn't,
I couldn't
and
be
you
with him.
couldn't go in.
That was devastating.
Yeah,
He cried and cried, and I cried and cried, and it
because
was just devastating.
yeah, he was clearly anticipating it from his journal, and you were as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that at any point up to this point, were you like, there, this is wrong, something's not right? Were you, what was going through your mind?
Of course, with the way the world had gone, I was just mixed emotions, not knowing who to trust.
Mm-hmm.
And Larry was always the kind that, don't worry, baby, don't worry. It's okay.
Got it.
I'm
Yeah.
doing good, and so I would try to believe that with him. But after they did that on the 10th day and still wouldn't let me up, yeah, there was chaos inside of me, in my
Mm-hmm.
mind, in my heart, in my spirit. Everything was just blowing up. Um, and I didn't get to talk to him as much. I would call and he wouldn't answer the phone. Um, I'd call the nurse's station and couldn't get an answer. Uh, I did call a lady that I knew that worked at the hospital. I had known her for years, even before I knew Larry. And I called her and I said, "Listen, he's there. Will you please check on him? Will you?" And she said she would. She assured me that the nurses were really good about staying in touch. And I'm thinking, well, that's bull crap,
Just
because they haven't so far.
yeah.
But anyway, I don't know if she did or not. Um, also had one of the nieces, his niece's husband's was an RN or a nurse there, and had him kind of looking in. But again, you don't know what's happening. I don't
Right.
know that they know what's happening unless it's the people who are actually working with the patient.
Yeah, exactly. Like
They know.
if they work somewhere else in the hospital, they're like oblivious as to what's happening on the COVID
Yeah.
floors.
And
Right.
nobody wants to believe it.
Right.
I get that. I didn't want to believe it either.
Right.
But yeah, that next 10 days was just hell. It was pure hell. Um, because you don't know what's going on. So
Mm-hmm.
they increased meds. They start, at one point, I can't remember the exact day, one of the doctors starts him on sildenafil, which is Viagra, um, and it throws him into AFib. And he
As
said,
it would.
it's in the records. He says, I don't want that again. And I don't know that he knew what it was they were giving him. He just knew it threw him into AFib. But they kept giving it to him for 5 days, 3 times a day. So it's like they wore his body out with these constant episodes of AFib. And you may have experienced AFib. I experienced it after his death, was the first time I had ever experienced it. And oh my God, it's like running a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
Can't catch your breath. For somebody already with breathing problems, I can't imagine the hell my husband felt while they kept him on this medicine that he told them, don't give me that again. And they're giving it 3 times a day. At the end of that period where they're giving him that, they immediately go into the morphine and the lorazepam. So they wear him down, and then they put him on the end of life drugs, which they're just before his death, they increased the morphine to 10 milligrams in one dose, and then gave him, I think there was 2 more doses after that, 6 more doses of 4 milligrams in very short intervals. I mean, there wasn't a lot of time in between these doses. She was coming in pretty regular giving these. I was there during that time.
And there are some notes in the chart where they're kind of saying wife won't agree to morphine.
Yeah. Let's go back to the 22nd. That's the day I was given 15 minutes. And we don't want to miss that day.
Yeah, we don't want to miss that.
If I hadn't got that day, I might would have bought the lie they were giving me those last few. All this time I've been asking to get in, and they won't let me. On the 22nd of March, Nurse Tammy McElwain, who had been his nurse after getting the records, realizing she had been his nurse most of the days he was in the hospital.
Is this her?
Yes. She called, and that's me with her. She called. She said, would you like 15 minutes with him? And I'm thinking, oh, I'm just grabbing at it. Yes, I want 15 minutes. I want whatever I can get. I've been asking. Yes. And she said, well, come on. This was in the afternoon on the 22nd. I said, okay, I'm on my way. So I jump in the car and I'm heading out. Larry called me and he said, baby, are you coming to see me? And I said, I sure am. I'm on my way. And he was so excited and he was crying. And he said, don't hang up. Just talk to me all the way there. So I did. It took a good 25, 30 minutes to get there. And we talked the whole time. Got there. I said, baby, I'm going to have to hang up now. I got to get on all this PPE garbage and I'll see you shortly. And so I walk in and he's setting up, taking pictures of me and a video of me walking into his room. And then he puts his phone down and he just cries. And he said, oh, baby, and he's so upset. And then he calls Nurse Tammy over and he wants a picture of him and her, which I took that one. He wanted the picture of me and her, which he took the other one. Now, these 2 pictures that you've got up now, the one on the left is on the 22nd. The one on the right is the wee hours of the 24th. After I left on the 22nd, they start end of life. Now, she didn't tell us any of that. In his journal on that day, I believe it was that same day, he put, I hope some doctor or administrator sees the work I'm putting into arm and leg health. Mm-hmm. He's exercising while he's laying in the bed. That was on the day that the picture on the left. A day and a half later, this same man is the picture on the right. How do you go from there to there?
That. Mm-hmm.
And that takes a lot.
It does. And
because as someone explained to us, it takes a lot to decompress the human body when the body wants to live.
Yeah, it does. It takes a lot.
I can't imagine what they put him through. It breaks my heart to think what he went through those last few days.
Well, she knows, doesn't she?
She knows because she can't even look him in the eyes.
Yeah, exactly.
He took of me and her, and she's looking out the window. She can't even look at him. But yet, both of us are there. Both of us are able to hear, as well as he can, but I'm there. But we were not talked to about what they were about to do or why. Why are you making that decision? Well, who gave you the right to make that decision? We're here. Talk to us. Talk to us. But nobody ever did. I left that room. He said, while we were talking in that room, he said, when I get home, we're going to do something special for her for getting you up here. And I said, baby, anything you want to do, we're going to do it. And she came in, she said, the 15 minutes was up. I said, well, if I can have 15, why can't I stay?
Right.
And she said, well, I don't have approval for that. I'm like, I want to be with him as much as possible. Now that I know I can, I want to be with him as much as possible. And if I had any clue and could go back and change anything, I would not have left that room that day. But because of what I'm seeing and the way he's interacting and talking about coming home, and I left. And I never should have. I never should have left him that day.
They would have made you leave anyways. I mean, you know it.
I know. But so after that visit, he FaceTimed me that night. It was about 11:15, 11:30. He had never FaceTimed in his life. I didn't know he could FaceTime. I'm sure he was just laying there playing with his phone.
It was.
And he FaceTimed me. And he was just so relieved for that day. I mean, he was so excited that I had got to come up and see him, and just wanted to tell me good night and that he loved me. And that's the last time we spoke.
Because it's interesting, the isolation, you saw it, right? The isolation strips hope. It strips hope from that person that's in that room. It strips hope from the family. And then there's that spark of hope.
Yeah.
And people start to do better. Like, you can see it. So like, you can see it in his face too, like you can see the smile in his eye, right?
Yep.
Just, that is the spark of hope, because you came. That is, yeah. So let me, you're going to digress a little bit. So you sent me 3 pictures of doctors, and I want to talk about your interactions with them. Okay. Right. So the first one I'm going to pull up is this Vicky Boggs.
She just made a lot of notations that she contributed greatly to the decisions being made for my husband. I never met her. I never talked to her. It's just in his record, she said that her opinion contributed greatly to what was being done. So I hold her responsible for my husband's death.
Yeah, right.
He never spoke to me about it. Nobody ever spoke to me about it.
And she's greatly responsible for his death.
Mm-hmm. And there's 2 others that they weren't even doctors, but I couldn't find pictures.
Yeah. What about Walter Wright?
Walter White, he is the one that really ultimately gave the okay for everything that happened. He signed the death certificate that said it was COVID, even though the records show my husband didn't have COVID. When I called after my husband's death, I wanted to speak to him, and they asked me what about, and I was telling them, about my husband. And he had someone else call me and say, I never even saw her husband.
But his name's in the records. I mean, well, you said he signed the death certificate.
He was the overseer, it appeared. Yeah. I don't know that he ever did see my husband.
Oh, maybe not.
He was making decisions about my husband's death.
Making decisions.
He shouldn't have saw him.
Making decisions without even knowing who your husband was, or having seen your husband.
Right.
You'd be surprised. Maybe you wouldn't be surprised how often we hear that.
I don't know that don't anything from the medical community would surprise me at this point.
And Dr. Burdine had talked about um, something that happens called ghost charting.
Yes.
Yeah. And so where like not even sometimes it's not even a real doctor or nurse that charts,
Yeah.
or it's somebody that was never there, but you put your name on it, you
Hmm.
you, you own it. And then there's one more doctor that you sent me a picture of, and this is Frankie Erdman or Wendell Erdman, whatever he decides he wants to go by.
Yeah. Well, he was Frankie until I went on the review boards after my husband's death and gave him a scathing review of everything that he did that caused my husband's death. And then he changed it to Wendell.
Yeah. So
Um, he's
let's
the
talk
one
about
that made him a DNR without our consent or our knowledge in the very beginning. And that's what followed my husband throughout his 20-day
Mhm.
hospital stay was. So yeah, I hold him responsible in
Yeah.
part for my husband's death. I don't think he never saw my husband again after he made him a DNR. So the age
Um,
of the ninth is the only time he saw my husband, but he falsified records by putting him as a DNR because that was not what we said.
and did you ever talk to him?
Only on the 8th when he called and said, "Your husband does not want to be intubated. Do you know that? And do you agree?" And I said,
That
"Yes."
was him.
Yeah,
Yeah. And he turned that into a DNR.
the
So
next day.
they consistently do that, and that was something in the Grace Shara trial that they were trying to fight, and the jury couldn't see it.
Yeah,
That a do not intubate DNI is not the same as a DNR. People have to remember, if people are going, well, why isn't it? Because if you resuscitate, don't you have to intubate? No, you don't.
yeah,
People get CPR all the time and are not intubated.
yes,
I mean, that would be crazy to say, just because somebody was revived, matter of fact, you can revive somebody with just chest compressions,
mm-hmm,
and ambubag if needed.
yeah,
Like the Red Cross even teaches that chest compressions alone can save a patient. So
yes,
um yeah, so I wanted to highlight these because I'm a big fan of name them and shame them, right?
yes,
The
me
ones that
too.
yeah, I think they need to be, because the public has a right to know
Yes, they do.
that these people are out there. Okay, so they so that was their role in that, and her role as a nurse. And
Yes.
here's the thing that's very shameful about the nurse. So I'm looking at this picture. I'm looking at that picture, and
Mm,
she knows what's going on.
yeah.
She knows that they're killing your husband.
Yep.
She knows that they're about to kill your husband.
Yes.
I can't help but feel she was like, "Do you want 15 minutes just so you could feel the effect?" Like, she knows what's going on. The nurse, an RN, a nurse's role. My husband is an ex-nurse. The nurse's role is to be the primary advocate for the patient
Yes.
and to stand. I mean, there's something called the Nightingale Pledge, right? So it's to stand between the patient and harm, right? Even
Yeah.
if it means standing up to the administration and a
Yeah.
doctor. She knew he was in danger. She probably knew many other patients were in danger. I you
She
know,
ultimately was the danger.
she was the
She
danger.
was the one
Yeah,
that killed him.
not the one who not the one. So you mentioned something about the pictures. So how did you get these pictures?
Okay, these were on Larry's phone, of course, so I didn't have them. I left that day on the Tuesday, the 23rd. I kept trying to contact Nurses Station and Larry and never could get an answer, which really concerned me. Never heard from anybody. Then Wednesday, about 10, I got a call from the nurses station. We're just calling to update you. Everything's about the same. Nothing's changed. Basically, it's business as usual, you know. Didn't give me any real information. I said, well, I want to be there. I said, I was there Monday. I
Mhm.
want to be there. She said, well, I would have to get permission. I said, well, you need to get permission because I want to be back up there. If I can be there for 15 minutes, there is no reason I can't be with him. So
Right.
it was a while before I heard back from her. But later on in the day, I did. And she said yes, that I could come up. So I took off up there. I expected to walk in and find him the way I did, a day and a half earlier. And I didn't. He was comatose, paralyzed. Um,
Did they give him paralytics, or was he just, you know?
um, I at that particular time, I mean, he wasn't moving, so I'm not real sure what all they had done, but he was definitely in a coma.
Mhm.
And there was no doctor in there, although the records say there was a doctor there when I came in, but there was no doctor in the room. There was a lady there. I thought she was a nurse, but I think she was over the end of life or the comfort care stuff, but she didn't say that. She said they'd given him something for anxiety, that he was very anxious. And so he was resting. They were keeping him comfortable. He was resting. And so I sit down beside him, sitting there just talking to him, trying to wrap my brain around what happened in the last day and a half.
Yeah.
And because he looked so different, you
I
know,
mean,
his
this is it.
features, you could
This is it, right? This is so people know this isn't like Larry on day one when he goes in the hospital and Larry 20 days later. This is a matter of
yeah, this is less than 2 days.
less than 2 days.
Hmm.
Less than 2 days. This doesn't happen
Hmm.
without somebody making it happen.
Yes. I mean, he doesn't even look like the same man.
No,
And
no, he doesn't. And the skin, the what? So was he? Were they giving him food and water, or do you know if they?
no,
Yeah.
in his journal, it notes, I believe it's that Tuesday morning after I had seen him on Monday, he put, today's a different day. They haven't brought me any breakfast
Hmm.
or they haven't brought me any food. Um, and that's the same day where about halfway down he scribbled it and he puts, I got a long way to go, babe.
Mm,
Um, so he was already being drugged and knew something was off.
yeah.
Um, but he must have been pretty drugged because he had a beautiful handwriting, and that's just
Yep.
scribbled.
And it just, you saw it, you could see it go downhill.
Yeah.
Um,
But so I I had them let they came in and they said, "Do you need someone here with you?" And I said, "Yes, that would be good." And so I called his first wife, who is a very good friend of mine. We just all had a real good relationship. Um, and asked her to come be with me, and she did. And she had a nursing background too.
mhm.
So she came up, and we're sitting there, and we're just talking. We're talking to him. We're trying to, because we really don't know anything. We haven't seen hospital records. We haven't talked to a doctor.
Yeah.
Nurses are telling us one thing, but it's not measuring up with what we see. And at one point, she looked over and she said, "Janie, where's his fluids?" And I looked up, and there's all these bags hanging, so it never
Yeah.
registered with me that he wasn't getting fluids. But as we got to looking, all that was drugs going into his body. There were no fluids. And so that's when I really started fighting. And I'm telling them, I want him on fluids. I want these medicines decreased. And she said, "Well, we have to have a doctor's order." I said, "Well, call him. Call him." I said, "I want him to stop now. I want him fluids now." And I mean, it states in the records that she paged, but she told me he didn't answer, but it appears he did answer. They just
Mhm.
didn't give the orders to give him fluids and to get him off medicines. Um, So I fought that all night long. I was giving him sips of water through a straw. They came in and jumped all over me about that. They said, "You're going to drown him." And I'm like, "I've been doing this for several hours and it hadn't drowned him yet."
Yeah.
And at one point it was almost like he was taking it. You could see him literally swallowing. And so I keep giving him these drops, and then they keep telling me I'm going to suffocate him. And then that Thursday morning, they come in and they say, well, it was two nurses came down and called me out in the hall. And they said, "You're going to have to leave." And I said, "Oh, no, I'm not." And they said, "Well, we'll have to get the administrator." I said, "You go get them." I said, "And bring me the ethics committee too." I said, "Because everything you're doing here is illegal." I said, "You're killing my husband." And we were in the hall and I wasn't talking low. I said, "You're killing my husband and I'm not leaving him. I won't leave here without him." And they said, "Well, we'll have to go get the administrator." I said, "Well, you go do what you got to do. I'm going to do what I got to do." And I went back in the room, and that's when I called the lady that I knew at SADS. And I told her, which I had called Dr. Luke's office too. I had forgotten about this until last night. I had actually called Dr. Luke's office on the same day that I called SADS, which was that Thursday before they killed him. And I told his nurse, because Larry had been, very communicative with her, and I remembered her. And I said, "They're killing him over here. I need y'all to come. I need somebody to step in here and get him fluids and to get him off these medications." And, she seems really concerned, but nobody ever comes and nobody ever calls. And at that point, frustration was so great with everybody that it seemed like everything you did was just a slap in the face by these people who should be listening and taking into account what the patient or their advocates' wishes are.
Yeah.
Nobody's listening to me. Nobody's taking any action to reverse what they've done. And I didn't know at the time he was a DNR, but I feel like that DNR in place on those records that we didn't know about was keeping them from doing anything that I was requesting.
Yeah. I have to agree with you with that. That DNR, as you know, I experienced the same thing. They put a
Yeah.
DNR on me, even though I was saying I'm not a DNR.
Right.
And what people need to understand if they're watching this, and especially if they are thinking, I wonder if my loved one was killed in the hospital, look for that in the records, because the DNR does dictate whether or not they intend to save you or intend to kill you,
Yes.
right? And my personal, what I've seen in so many stories is, and with so many whistleblowers, is that DNR, if they can get you on palliative care and hospice care, even if it's just designating the bed, they don't even have to move you. I learned this from somebody who actually an organization that documents hospice murders, right? That they get this bonus money for hospice and for palliative care. And with the COVID money and the hospice bonuses together, that was just like a gold mine for them.
Mm-hmm.
So they make somebody doesn't want to be on an or they don't want to be intubated, they just turn that DNI into a DNR.
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I do think it probably did. They saw that DNR and they're just like, well, it's not a matter of if he dies, it's when, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think you're right about that.
But I kept fighting all day, and I got in touch with the lady at SADS, and I said, "Listen, this is what's happening." I had known her for years. I said, "I need to get him somewhere that will give him fluids and get him off these medications so he can wake up." And she said, okay, all we need is a negative COVID test. I said, well, he's negative. You can come get it. So they did. They sent somebody over on Thursday afternoon, got the negative COVID test. It's documented. And we start making preparations then to get him transferred. Once everything's put through, they start coming in with these, they will not transport him. He's on too much oxygen. They're not going to transport him because he'll probably die in transport. To me, you're killing him anyway. Let's take the chance. But they weren't listening to me. Then they're starting to, push me to come into agreement with what they're doing. And I'm not agreeing to anything. And I finally told this doctor that came in, Dr. Percy, later in the evening, I said, I can't make these decisions. I said, I am not letting go of my husband. I said, our children should be here. This is wrong. Our children should be here. He said, how many children do you have? I said, we have 8 between us. And he said, how soon can they be here? And I said, well, most of them could be here within the hour. I said, they need to be allowed to be here to see their dad. And so he looked at the nurse and he said, make preparations for that. Get them in. He said, let them all know to come on as quickly as they can. And so I called them, and sure enough, 6 of them were able to come. And they were all sitting around. And of course, he's basically regurgitating everything because he's only seen him. He's only walked in and seen him. He hasn't been a part of his care. He hasn't seen these pictures. He doesn't know everything that's going on. He's just walking in at the tail end. He starts, talking to the kids about it's too late because we're asking, well, what about a lung transplant? What about this? What about the other? What about things that can be done for people with bad lungs? Oh no, we're way past all of that. We're way past all of that. And so basically, he tells us there's no other way. And they continue on with what they've planned to do. Then my 3 girls stay with me and the rest of them leave. We stay all night sitting up with him. And at some point, Nurse Tammy is still coming in and out, giving meds, doing what she's doing. And I'm sitting there and I get his phone and I'm going to pull up the pictures he took on Monday. And I start looking and they're not there. And I said, where are the pictures? And Nurse Tammy's in there. She's over at the IV pumps. And Marianne, my daughter, said, what, Mom? And I said, well, the pictures in the video that he did on Monday are not in his phone. I said, he would have never erased those, ever. The man was a picture-holic like I am. And he had a purpose for those, just to keep pulling them up, because I do that. Yeah. And she said, hand me the phone. And so I gave it to my daughter and she got to looking, and they were deleted out of the gallery, but they were still in the trash file.
Yeah, good.
So my daughter was, like I said, I'm not very technologically inclined, but my daughter is. She works on computers. And she pulled them up and she said, here they are. And Nurse Tammy jerked her head around and looked and walked out of the room. And so,
oh my goodness.
At that point, I'm not really knowing what's going on or anything. So I didn't think much about it until later. But I pulled up the pictures then and I had them. They're dated, time stamped and everything. So I don't think she had permission to let me in on Monday. I think for the rapport that she had developed with him, she knew what they were doing. She knew he was going to be killed, but she would give me 15 minutes. And while I appreciate that, and I'm thankful she gave me that, She deleted those pictures off of his phone because she was the only one who knew about the pictures. Nobody else was in there. It was just me, her, and Larry. She deleted the pictures off the phone, and she continued with the plan. That God, I have to pray for her because I can't imagine. I can't imagine doing that to a human being or
I,
to a family.
and
And
living, yeah, having to live it, like, it's wonderful that she brought you in for those 15 minutes. It would have been even more amazing if she had saved his life
yeah,
or
said
tried.
this is what they're wanting to do, and this is what you need to do.
Yeah.
Just spell it out for me. And that is advocating for your patient. That is a nurse coming and advocating for the patient and not just following doctor's orders. But she was going to follow their orders. But for that moment, I mean, Larry was the kind of person you could know him for 10 minutes and feel like you known him forever. And they had talked about our grandchildren. They had talked about mine and his relationship because she mentioned it on that Monday when she was walking me to his room. She knew the kind-hearted man he was. She knew, and yet she chose to follow through. So at the moment that they ended his life, his heart stops. She walked around me, around the end of the bed, and she said, "This is biological warfare." Cut the machines off and walked out of the room.
Mm. What
That
day?
haunts me to
What day
this
did he
day,
die? What day did he die?
the 26th, that
The
Friday.
26th of
Mhm.
March 26th of 2021.
2021.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-mm-mm. And what did they put on his death certificate?
COVID-19 pneumonia
Not
with
murder.
with the acute respiratory distress syndrome as secondary.
So to know that I mean, it is biological warfare, right? We
And
know it
one
now.
thing I want to add that
Mhm.
people really don't realize either is after his death, I wanted an autopsy in toxicology.
Mhm.
And I left a check to personally pay for it with the funeral director. I said, I want this personally done. I'm paying for it. And he called me, I think it was a day or two later, and he said they cannot touch him because COVID is on the death certificate. So by putting COVID, even
Wow.
though he had 3 negative COVID tests, them putting COVID on the death certificate slammed the door to me being able to prove that he was overdosed. Anything to do with
Wow.
COVID shut the door on anything. And I don't know that people realize that or not. And that has to be a bald-faced lie because they have done autopsies on COVID patients.
So they've done autopsies on COVID patients, but I'm wondering, um, this is going to have me go down a rabbit hole, of course, but I'm wondering, I'm going to have to check. I wonder the earliest one we could find because I know they did everything they could to make people not get autopsies,
Yeah.
right? I mean, from telling, especially with veterans, they would tell like their wives, "Oh, well, this could, if you get an autopsy, it's going to hold up your widow's benefits or your any type of benefit for uh 2 to 4 years, right? Like, and so they're trying to take care of kids or whatever.
Yeah.
And then, um, but I do know that some of the uh, people who had a loved one killed towards the end of 2021 did get autopsies, but I don't know about early 2021 or 2020. I think they did use that stamp to stop any type of toxicology or
Well, we called several states. I called
Mhm.
other places in Alabama. The funeral director called some that he knew in other states. We
Yeah,
couldn't get anybody to
to
do an
do
autopsy
it.
because he held the body for a while
Yeah,
for us to try to find somebody who would come in and do it.
and they wouldn't do it.
They would not
I
do
mean,
it.
that doesn't surprise me because they even in 2020 they were even cremating people who didn't want to be cremated, which is so insane because COVID-19 is a novel virus, right? It is a um, they acted like it was the Black Plague or something, and it
Right,
wasn't.
right.
You can't, you couldn't get COVID. I mean, first of all, 20 days. You know what? He's negative, right? He's not contagious. Even he wasn't even contagious 15 days before he died, right? Because
Mhm.
you're oftentimes contagious before you have some symptoms. If you are contagious, even crazy. So that's interesting. So they wouldn't let you have an autopsy, wouldn't let you have even the blood, the toxicology. I mean, okay, like not even a toxicology report.
Nope.
Um, okay, and then you had some notes on a on the medical records about the doctor, not never seen your husband, and that was the doctor that signed the death certificate, right?
One of them.
One of them. Okay.
There was I don't even know who the main doctor was who was taking care of him because there's so many doctors listed,
Yeah.
and a lot of these daily reports almost appear copied and pasted,
Yeah.
just a
Yeah.
different date put on it because they say the exact same words.
It's crazy. So at what point, I mean, because this is March of 2021, right? So people were starting to be alarmed. They were starting to wake up to the fact that that it wasn't all was not what they said it
Right.
was in the hospitals. So and it hadn't even really, when you look at the stories and the stats, it wasn't even at its worst yet. We didn't even know, like, this, we didn't even know the winter of death was coming in 2021. The Biden administration was going to usher in. But did you so at what point, at first, did you think COVID killed him, or
No,
were starting to get?
no, I knew before I ever even called SADS to come get the COVID test. I knew he was
Yeah.
negative. Uh,
Yeah.
and that's when I think because I had seen him on Monday and
Yeah.
saw the condition he was in and saw how quickly deteriorated he was in a day and a half, I thought there's no way in hell this had just happened.
Right.
This is not natural. This is not a progression of death. This is caused. And
Yeah.
I'm hollering it before I ever leave that they've killed him.
Okay.
As soon as I leave the hospital, he passed at 3:16 on Friday. As soon as I get home, I call the police.
Oh.
I mean, I call the police and I have them come out. I want to file a report. I want it investigated. They can't touch it.
Oh my God.
I think
Yeah.
he said his reasoning there. It's a civil matter. It happened in a hospital. They have no jurisdiction in that. He feels real sorry for my loss. They probably just looking at me as a hysterical wife at that point because it
Mhm.
had just happened. I just came home from the hospital. I hadn't even got the records yet. I just knew they just
Mhm.
killed. And so I call and I do order the hospital records. Now, whether I got all of them or not, I don't see how 1,500 and something pages can be 20 days worth.
Yeah.
But I got enough to
To
show
know that they killed. Yeah.
that they killed him.
That they killed them.
They
Yeah.
euthanized him. And in Alabama, there is a law that says If you euthanize someone, even out of care, that is punishable by life imprisonment or death. That's
Mm-hmm.
Alabama law. That's
So
not, but they won't even do anything to find out that they killed them because COVID is on everything. No attorneys will talk to you.
yeah.
COVID's on the death certificate. I mean, it slammed the door. So all we got to do is put COVID. And I'm telling them, I've got 3 negative COVID tests in 20 days. It doesn't matter. They put COVID on the death certificate.
And did you,
They go by.
and then did you end up ultimately reporting it to, like HHS or any of the,
I reported to the medical board. I reported to the nursing board. I've been very vocal on their review sites,
yeah,
hospital and doctors.
very vocal on Facebook,
Very vocal. Extremely
Twitter,
vocal on Facebook and X and
and
Instagram.
podcasts.
Anywhere else that I can put it. The
Yeah.
1819 news article.
Right.
Actually, when I got to Washington, they walked out and they said, 1819 news. We read about that. So they knew that in Washington before I ever got there.
Yeah.
Which is,
I love that.
Yeah.
Because that's important, right? So people will be
is.
watching this and they have a story. It's incredibly important to tell your story everywhere.
Yes.
Everywhere.
Everywhere.
Like people
keep it current.
People could go and they can do a internet search, my name, Janie's name. You can search our names and you can see everywhere where we've told our stories because it's so important.
Yes.
It's important. And you probably experienced this too, where you tell your story somewhere, or it's on a podcast and people reach out and they're just like, hey, that happened to me. And they're looking for some connection and some direction, right?
Yes.
So it's very important.
And I know it's hard. I know it's hard. It doesn't get easier. I wish I could tell you that it gets easier every time you tell. It doesn't.
Right.
But for us to affect change, for us to not allow this to be another thing that gets brushed under the rug, we have to speak. As many of us as will, we have to speak and we have to keep speaking.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter who comes against you. Trust me, I have a lot that come against me, especially friends or family or whatever that has ties to the medical community or they're in the medical community.
Yeah.
I'm not saying every one of them's bad. I've never said that. I believe there's good nurses out there. I believe there's good doctors out there. I know some of them.
We know some of them. Yeah.
Some of them helped to save my daughter, as you'll find out later.
Yeah.
But for those who took lives, we are the voice of our loved ones. They can't speak anymore. We're their voice.
Right.
And people need to hear your story.
Yep.
And when you start hearing these stories and you see the commonalities and you see the things, they weren't being treated.
Yeah.
Just they were following this that was passed down from the government and the pharmaceutical industry to do to these patients. It didn't matter what they might have wrong with them or how this medicine might affect their body. This is what they've been ordered to do, and that's what they were doing. It wasn't about care.
And it was
money.
it was about money. It was about money. And it wasn't accidental. At some point it ceased to be even out of ignorance because the same things were even being said, the same manipulative tricks, the same gaslighting happened in 50 states. And now, and actually it happened in Europe and Canada too. So in Australia, these same things. So it was very much orchestrated. It was very much, on our site, we call it the deadly playbook, the deadly hospital playbook, because they did have a playbook.
Yeah.
And so you need to know how to counter it. It didn't start with COVID. It's not going to end with COVID.
Exactly.
So since this happened, just talk a little bit about how it affected your life.
Oh, mercy. There's been a huge hole blasted in me. Uh, well, this is my life now. Just to go out and be his voice. I mean, I try to stay upbeat and active for
Mm-hmm.
my children, for my grandchildren, but there's always something missing,
Yeah.
something I can't get past. Again, that last week of his life haunts me to no end. I don't know how any of them associated with it could look in the mirror and keep
Mm-hmm.
going, because there's days it just torments me.
Yeah.
Uh, I don't really feel like that person who enjoyed getting up and, you know, looking forward to something that day. Um, the thing I look forward to now is being with him again one day, you know, on the other side of this. But as long as I got breath in my lungs, I know God's got a plan. And I know that I know that I know that he would have me be vocal about this.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't think I would have been allowed to see everything I saw
Sure.
and to know everything I know. Uh, and it does isolate you. You know, you do lose friends,
Yeah.
you lose family. And I can't say that I blame them, because I can't imagine being around me, you know, as somebody that didn't experience it. I can't.
Yeah.
I'm not that person anymore. I'm not just that. I try to be fun loving and I try to do things, and I do love to still travel, but that emptiness goes with me everywhere I go.
Mm.
And as my aunt says, there'll never be another Larry.
Yeah.
She's right. There'll never be another Larry. I mean, it
Y'all
took
were,
years to build the relationship that we had.
and you had a beautiful life together. Like
It,
here's one thing I love about you, Janie, is even through your tears, the amount of hope that you try to bring to other widows and to help them through like really dark times is just amazing to me. You have like such a selfless love for people that is, it really just is beautiful. And I see it, just in your own Facebook group and C19 widows and widowers, you just give them so much. I don't know, you're always like trying to I empathize, and because you do feel that with them, for them. And so no, I love that, and being his voice. But I do find it interesting, the loss, like you said, the loss of people in your life. There is that loss. And so but I always found it interesting, if Larry had died, if he had gone to a grocery store, got robbed, got killed, and the killer was still out there, all the people who are like, you know, that kind of abandoned or whatever, they would be like, we can't rest until we have justice for Larry, till this killer is, you know, not on the streets anymore. But because they're wearing a white coat, or a nurse's outfit, it, people don't want um, to deal with that. I think people can just like reconcile a product harming somebody, but they can't imagine the evil or the lack of virtue that would cause nurses and doctors to harm patients. Yet
right.
it's what, the number two killer in America. So I mean,
Well,
number
and I've thought about it so much, and I do kind of get it, because I mean, we're all at their mercy
yeah,
at
we
any
are.
given time of life. And
Yeah,
we have been raised that you trust the doctor. You just trust the doctor. We didn't question. We
in
signed whatever and never even read nothing.
yeah,
Uh, We never asked to see about pamphlets or side effects or
No,
well, he says
never.
it. That's it. And we have put them on that godlike pedestal,
Yeah,
and now we realize the error of our ways. And
we
it's
do.
like,
That's a good
you
point.
it's not that you don't want to trust them. You need to be able to trust them. But after what we've gone through, after what we've witnessed, after the coldness and the callousness and the hardness and the pure evil, I don't even know. Maybe they're blinded because the Bible tells us,
Yeah,
even the elect is going to be deceived. I
yeah,
mean,
exactly.
there's a day of evil we're living in that we never thought we would see.
No,
We could hear about it. We could hear sermons about it. We
right,
could talk about it. But there's a level of evil going on in this world today that I can't say I blame them. You don't want to believe it.
right. But once you're touched by it, you're never the same, right?
You're never the same.
You never
Yeah.
go. That's what, and I tell people too. Sometimes people are like, it's hard to tell. It's going to be hard to talk about my story or tell my story. You're ruminating about it anyways, right? Like
Yeah.
you're. It's already killing you inside.
Yes.
Let it out, and you'll be surprised how many people it helps.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and that will draw those to you that you have a ministry to be joined to.
Yeah, exactly.
Just because these have turned their back on you, it's because they don't understand.
Right.
It's because they can't comprehend.
Right.
They don't know how to relate to you.
Right.
And it's not necessarily that they don't want to. It's just they just want you to move past it. They just want you to be your happy, peppy self again. They just want to get back to life. And I wish I could do that.
Right.
I do. Everything in me looks at pictures of us together, looks at pictures of me back then, and I think, God, I'd love to be her again.
Yeah.
I would love to be that happy again.
Isn't it?
They killed a whole lot more than Larry. They killed.
did.
It's just I'm still here.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was gonna say. Like it's beyond just what people think would be the impacts. It's a murder and a robbery because it robs of so much. And to be honest, I don't care. Like I tell people all the time, I don't care if they rob somebody 5 hours of life or 50 years of life.
Exactly.
It is the same. They're not the author of life and death, and they had no right to take it.
They have no right.
Right. And so what's one of your favorite memories of Larry?
Oh gosh. I don't know that I can narrow it down to one. There's so many. I mean, we've got tens of thousands of pictures of videos,
You do.
his and mine. And one picture that stands out, and I didn't send it to you, but we did a lot of homeless outreach.
Yeah.
In the early days of ministry, especially. But is him lugging like 3 big things of water down into this homeless camp with the biggest smile on his face.
Oh.
It was just his heart to be there, and you'd see him praying with them or just loving on them, and that was his heart, was just showing people the love of Jesus, because they were worth it. And you can tell when somebody says, I love you, and it's just a word.
Yeah,
Those
exactly.
actions speak louder than the words, and his actions spoke volumes. I mean, he didn't just tell you he loved you. He showed he
He
loved you.
showed it.
And
That's a beautiful thing.
and I believe that nurse saw that. I believe she saw that.
I think it would be impossible for her not to have. And, perhaps that's why she whispered that to you on the day that he closed his eyes on earth and opened his eyes in heaven and heard those words, right? Well done, good and faithful servant.
Yeah.
Which
And it was, to me, God spoke to me because he passed at 3:16 p.m.
that's
And the
amazing.
thing that immediately came to mind was I love the world so much, you know.
I gave my
And it was
only.
a message. It was a message in that moment. And I did carry it from that hospital room because I thought about it immediately when she called over to the other lady and told her to write, it's 3:16.
That's amazing. It's a little God wink, actually, kind
Yeah,
of.
I get a lot of those.
Yeah, I love God winks. God winks are
I
the
do too.
best.
I do too.
I want to share this with everybody in here, and we're going to put it on the page with your story too. It's Ellie makes the most amazing things, and she does these pixels and pulses. And if people want to follow her, she's on Facebook at I think it's Dead Serious, kind
Kind
of
of.
not.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so um, but she makes these pixels and pulses, and they're like a forever hug. And I love this one so much. It's on your Facebook,
Yeah.
but I love that you two were so full of life and had such a beautiful marriage and story that I just I can't. I'm so sorry, first of all, but I want people to know we're going to be doing a part two, which is going to be Reagan's story. And this experience and your husband Larry being murdered in the hospital and everything that you went through and the connections that you made ultimately resulted in you being able to save your daughter's life. And we're going to do an interview on that. So people need to check that out as when we get that done, because that was an incredible story. I remember it.
Yeah, you were very much a part of that.
And it's you did everything right. And so people, when you tell that story, people need to really pay attention to it in case they ever have to advocate for somebody, because
Yeah.
you did a lot of things right. Is there anything that, before we stop the recording, is there anything you want to tell people um, to wrap up?
I just wanted to tell you to tell your story. If you have not gotten hospital records yet and your loved one died with any of this going on, call the records department of the hospital. Get the records. Even
Yeah.
if you never do anything with them, get them. They belong to you. You deserve to know what really happened. Also, I have a Facebook page called First Do No Harm. And if you have a story, I encourage you to come on there and tell your story. Um, a lot of people leave little videos, and we just want to document these people who lost their lives in this biological warfare known as COVID. We want to document this on every platform we can. And we do have a lot of pages dedicated to that. So just tell
Yeah.
your story everywhere. If you do one of these interviews, link it.
Everywhere.
Let's
Yeah.
get it out everywhere. Give them no rest. The Bible talks about the widow in the Bible that just kept going before the judge, just kept going before this unjust judge and telling her story. And finally, he just got so sick of hearing her. He said, I got to do something for her. Just shut her up. Be that widow.
Be
Be
that way.
that widower. Keep telling it. Drive them crazy. Call your representatives. Stay on them. We need the PrEP Act repealed. Call them every day. Call them several times a day. Write letters. I still write letters.
Yeah.
And send them. We're just going to drive them crazy if nothing else. But
Yeah.
tell your story. And you are loved and you are worth hearing. And if
Yeah.
everybody else has shut you out, no, we will not.
Right.
We're not just fighting for our loved ones. I'm fighting for your loved ones. It's
Yep.
not about just Larry. It's about all of you who lost loved ones to this travesty.
1.6 million.
Yep.
That's a huge number.
That's a huge
1.6
number.
million.
Imagine if we all came together.
I know.
Oh my
Imagine.
gosh.
Imagine if even half of the people woke up and were like, I'm going to tell, the government would shake in their boots.
Yep.
good shake in their boots.
That's what it's going to take.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. So, and many other movements have shown us that before this. And that's why we don't just we can't just let it go. Can't just let it go.
As long as there's breath in my lungs.
Yep.
I'll be saying something about it.
That's what I said. And even then, they'll have to drag me off my dead body off the battle.
Even then, our voices are going to continue through these videos that we're making. Our post.
They'll be dragging me off, kicking and screaming, even after I'm gone.
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you for all your hard work, Gail. I appreciate you.
Thanks. Share these videos, y'all.